Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I'm Rory Chowdhury, Head of Product Marketing at Soldo. Today I'm joined by our very own Kath Watson, who leads our marketing operations here. Thank you for being here, Kath.
Absolute pleasure, Rory.
No, the pleasure's mine. So, Kath, as you well know, I've spoken with finance leaders and teams across multiple industries, particularly, social care, technical professional services, media production, and they all seem to share a similar struggle. They want to empower their people to make good spending decisions while at the same time maintaining strong control, compliance, and gaining visibility. Many of these finance teams find themselves stuck in the middle, chasing receipts, managing endless approvals, and manually plugging gaps instead of focusing on strategic work that moves their businesses forward. So I guess the question I would ask is, to start with, does that kind of situation ring true for you as well?
Yes, absolutely. I think as a marketing organization, the pace at which we need to work is fast. It can change quite rapidly. Spend happens in many areas and at different paces. And we need to be able to have control, but we also need a lot of flexibility. Um, and I think it really comes down to trusting people to make the right decisions and giving them the space to be able to make the decisions and spend quickly, but with the right controls in place. So yes, it really does ring true for me, and it happens a lot in marketing, and we need a flexible approach, and at Soldo that's what we have.
Okay. So we're going to focus on seven of the major features of the Soldo offering that
Yeah.
our customers tell us are the most popular. And I'm going to kind of ask you questions about each of them to get your sense of how this all plays out. Let's start with the big picture, talking about budget accountability
Yeah.
and control, using wallets within our talking point, as it were, the way we describe it. What does smarter budgeting look like for you today?
Great question. So smarter budgeting for me is to have transparency from the very beginning, but also to have the right structures in place. A lot of the time, historically, budgets are not transparent with teams. We don't, in the past, and I'm not talking about Soldo as a company, but, previous experiences, we've not had access to the right information to, to basically make smarter decisions as a business. So for me, having access to the information up front and having that access to every single part of the budget is key so that we can make decisions, better decisions, actually more informed decisions, so that we know we're spending money in the right place. I think one of the benefits of having a solution like Soldo is you get complete transparency from the beginning. We have very, very structured ways of managing our spend. We break it down. You mentioned wallet. So within the marketing function here, we use the wallet function a lot. Each area has their own dedicated budget. But what I'm also allowed to, what I'm able to do is flexibly move those budgets within the wallets as well. But I do that in partnership with the heads of department in marketing. So for me, budgeting is really about absolute clarity, transparency.
Interesting. So, I mean, because traditionally that's the kind of role that would have been performed within finance, and there'd be trouble tickets going
Exactly.
back and forth and
Yes,
requests. So we've almost like moved that locus of decision making
we
to where the
absolutely have.
decisions actually need to happen. That's really
Yes.
interesting. Okay, so that's really interesting, Kath. You've got visibility, but visibility on its own doesn't really cut the mustard, right? You need to have governance, you need to have rules and policies
Absolutely.
around how
Yes.
people spend, what they spend on. And governance is particularly critical when you're trying to empower people like me to go off
Hmm.
and do things and spend
Yeah.
money responsibly, but
Yeah.
you're also not wanting to be, the department that says no. So tell me how you strike that balance between policing the spend of departments within marketing, for example, and still being able um, to retain the control and the policy and the governance that you absolutely need from a financial
Yeah.
perspective.
Yeah. Great question. So a couple of things to unpack there. So for me, I have what is called the CMO view of the budget. And that is only a view that is available to myself and my team, and to Isabel, our CMO. But what that enables me to do is have a complete view of everyone's budget, but also what they're spending. So, for example, Rory, your budget is only accessible to you and your team. Revenue marketing under our lovely Julie is only accessible to her and her team. So I am very, we are in control of what the team, of what the marketing department is spending, and even at to a level where each department within, let's say, a sub department. So, for example, let's say product marketing. Under product marketing, we have a very, very structured way of monitoring and managing the spend. So we will look at the UK budget separately. We will look at the Italian budget separately. We will look at the rest of Europe budget separately. And what Soldo allows me to do, the platform is structure it in that way so that I'm managing the spend very carefully, but it's giving you instant access to your budget. We can also set limits. So it's not giving Rory the whole budget necessarily up front. I can look at it by quarter. I can look at it biannually. I can look at it monthly. I can release funds to you on a monthly basis. I can release funds to you from a quarter, So it's not about giving everything necessarily up front if we don't want to. We can control it very, very granularly, or we can control it at a high level. Being an operations person, I like to be in control. Some might say that's a little element of control freak, but for me, it's really important to be able to manage it at a granular level because, as operationally and as a function, we have a large budget within the company. Marketing has to be in control, but also has to have the flexibility. So that's what I love, is that I can go to a very granular level, or I can keep it as high level as I want. I hope that answered your question.
It really did, yeah. And I now know that you have money in other buckets that I can come begging for. But
No, 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 no.
okay, right. So that's the kind of setting it up,
Yeah.
making it available so that me and people like me can spend in accordance with the rules you've given us. What happens at the end of that process? So we've gone out, we spent the money. You've got to effectively reconcile it, right? You've got to
Yes.
report it, reconcile it, categorize it, put it in the right place. I've heard from teams in various companies that reconciliation is often one of the biggest drains on their finance team's time.
Yes.
Um, I've heard stories of finance teams spending 6 days a month reconciling petty cash and credit card expenses and reporting on all of this. That's a lot of valuable time that's lost to manual
Huge
work
amount.
rather than strategic analysis. So,
Yeah.
how does automation change the way you approach reconciliation, and what impact does that have on your role?
So I think back, and again, not applying this to Soldo, but 20 years ago, reconciliation was an absolute nightmare, and it caused a lot of back and forth with departments I was working with and in finance, and just a very manually draining task for everyone involved. Now that for me is a thing of the past. The beauty of what we have within the platform, a lot of that is taken away because of the automation. So the moment you make a transaction, I know about it. I get a notification on my mobile. I know exactly what you spent, where you've spent it, the time. And that opens up to a lot of things, to help reconciliation completely disappear. You still have to, from a governance point of view and structure, you need to reconcile just to make sure the numbers are matching up, because we have a whole accountancy process in the background. But for me, reconciliation is a lot easier. We're able to upload receipts automatically. We're able to look at reports instantly. The beauty of the product is everything is captured in the platform. So I know, the time, what was spent, it's all tagged as well automatically. So there's no going to find a cost code or going to find a department code or, what merchant's this? It's all done for you. And it's great, because the beauty is we integrate as well with NetSuite. So it even takes even more of that reconciliation process at the end of month with the finance team. So we're not getting into this battle of, is this, what's this when, how much was it? And that has gone. Like I said, we still do some reconciliation at the end, but you mentioned around 6 days a month was probably, it was a week's worth of reconciliation activity. Now we can probably do it in a half a day. So from an operational saving, it's huge.
That's massive. Half a day down from 6 days or a week. That's extraordinary.
Yeah.
Gives you more time to allocate money to my team for all the wonderful things we're going to do.
Maybe.
So, Kath, one of the things I've heard an awful lot about is people being forced to either access personal funds because they couldn't get or couldn't get access to corporate funds quickly enough. They're not trusted with a corporate card or what have you. I think you've outlined how we address that particular issue. But one of the things that I think is really important is we've heard 40% of middle managers saying their business missed a growth opportunity because employees didn't have direct access to budgets, right?
Yes.
If people are interested, it's from our Productivity at Work report and had some fascinating conclusions. So that ability to instantly generate a virtual card and hand it to somebody, how has that changed the way that teams operate? And what does that mean for you as an operations lead?
Hugely. So I think if we think about a marketing function, we have to make decisions quickly, but we have to think quite tactically sometimes. So if we, for example, want to flip quickly and create a new campaign, that campaign's going to need a lot of things behind it in terms of spending. We're going to need to spend from a digital perspective. We might have to spend from a merchandise perspective. We may have to, quickly book an event. There's lots of things that we need to turn around very quickly in a short space of time. And the beauty of the Soldo product is, being able to issue a card virtually instantly to an employee completely takes away that stress of having to, disburse funds to an employee. We can't expect employees to say, just pop it on your credit card, your personal credit card. We're talking thousands of pounds. It's not okay to do that as an organization. And, for me, that was the norm many, many years ago. And actually, it still is, in a lot of organizations. So for me, being able to get the funds instantly to the teams is an absolute, it's brilliant. And I just don't know what we were doing before, quite frankly.
And I will call that out as saying you helped us out. We were at an event, we needed to spend quite a lot of money pretty quickly, and you just sorted it instantly. It was very different to shall we say things that used to happen earlier in my career. But very useful. So let's talk, Kath, about real-time budget agility, being able to adjust limits within, a budget period. And we know we can't take things outside of a quarter and all of that.
Yeah,
right? That's all done, right? We've got
you're listening. You're listening.
Right? So what we've got now, as I understand it, is very flexible spend limits. You can change them almost at will. right? And I'm interested in understanding how that flexibility addresses that kind of the need that we have as marketers sometimes to pivot instantly. We're doing it right
Yeah.
now. There's been a bit of news where, as we deliver this webinar, there's been some news. We're writing a blog post. We're generating some social copy that it doesn't have a cost implication, but
No.
it might have done, right? So how does having these sort of flexible spend limits change the way you support the teams, and what kind of impact does that make day to day?
Again, has a significant impact not only on me as responsible for being the budget manager for the marketing organization, but also allowing yourself or another head of department to be able to spend quickly and efficiently. So for me, the limits is a great feature. I can work with finance very closely. Obviously we have a process in the background, what I call a kind of finance business cadence, where we're partnering with each other to review these things often. So for me, it's brilliant, because if I need to change a limit quickly, I can do. I don't have to wait for I don't know, like we used to have a change board every Friday. Oh, finance, we need to move here, this money from here to here. It's a decision that can be made, very pragmatically and quickly. So the limits are, changing budget limits, and even going down to each area, being able to cap. So, there's no danger of someone spending more than they should. We could put spending caps in place, which again is a great feature. We will obviously we have to trust people, right? You have to innately trust your employees to make right decisions. But there are situations where overspend can happen. So putting the spending caps in place, the limits, is really, really great for us as a marketing function, but also really supports finance as well.
And then I suppose the next step that comes out of that is, what I'm hearing is an awful lot of the control, the responsibility, the governance, the rule setting has moved out of the finance team and into your kind of function. Now, I appreciate that you work extremely closely with them,
Yeah.
but I'm curious, that then means there's a disconnection between the data they have and the data you have, or is that true? Is it all seamlessly integrated? Are you
Yeah.
able to feed that? You mentioned that we use NetSuite.
Yes.
Other finance packages are available.
They absolutely are.
But talk to me about
Yeah.
how that sort of integration works. Can they see in real time what you're doing, for example?
They absolutely can. So finance as a function obviously are essentially super admin, so they can see everything. They can see whatever they want at any time. So for me, everything gets fed via our integration with NetSuite. So obviously, we talk about centralized spend, decentralized spend, but actually there's a lot of decentralized spend going on in marketing. It's 80% of the transactions. Yes, there's a smaller percentage of the spend. It's where all the activity is happening. So for us, everything that happens feeds directly in to NetSuite. So when it comes to month end, again, there's no manually checking line by line by line. We're not creating another, process. So for me, the integration is key, because it again saves a lot of time, and finance have all the access that they need to see what's happening and when.
One of my biggest pains is, so when, and thank you for the information that you can see what I spend, when I spend. Next you'll tell me you'll know what I'm going to spend before I've spent it. But when my teams spend on various things, even if it's just travel, right? I'm reminded to go in and approve.
Yes.
I know that one of the biggest complaints we get from finance teams is approving expenses, approving expenditure, people not uploading receipts. And this whole kind of situation has generated what we call approval workflows in order to try and automate this, make it easier, make it smoother for both sides, right?
Yes.
For the people doing the spend, for the managers approving the spend, and of course for finance who has to report on it and audit it and what have you. So talk to me about how these approval workflows, which are built out of the box, or custom approval workflows, how do you use them and how do they help you, still keeping spend aligned to the control?
Mm. So approval ones is again, I mean, I am a huge advocate of this platform, but for me, the approval workflow is really important because again, it's about giving the flexibility, the independence to spend, but being in control at the same time. So for me, having, for example, I make a transaction, automatically that transaction comes up on my phone, asks me to approve it, and it's done within less than 30 seconds. And I'm being generous there. I probably say it's a lot less. So if you think back to when approving a spend that never existed, again, gosh, we would sometimes wait, I don't know, a week to approve something. So the fact is you're not even spending instantaneously. You have to wait a week to spend the money. Here, you can spend the money now and it's approved within seconds. So it goes back to that agility and speed because we have to perform at speed, but being in control at the same time. So the approval workflows for me are important, but they will never inhibit our ability to spend money.
We've talked about, the major features that our customers have highlighted as the top 7 that they use.
Yeah.
Now, we recently released a whole bunch of new features and enhancements, and I'm just going to call out one of those that works for me, which is reminders to reviewers, and a little
Yeah.
nudge every now and then to go in
Yeah.
and say yes or no to the expenses. So that's I found that really useful.
Yes.
Just takes me to where I need to be. It's just easy, and 3 clicks on my phone and it's done.
Yeah.
One other piece that we recently released was out of office delegation. So if you go away, you can authorize somebody to effectively act as Kath, if indeed they dare, to take on your responsibility for the time that you're away.
Yeah, I think for me the out of office delegation is fantastic. And again, I will go back to many times, and I'm talking, it used to happen and it still happens in other organizations where it's still a very manual process. And it doesn't need to be. I have someone that works with me that will act on my behalf when I'm away or if I'm out of the office, off site or something. So for that to be able to be instant, automatic is great. There's other things, the feature around, we've got a great feature with the reporting. And I know I've spoken about this is, so many different ways to cut the information in the platform. But I need to have very particular views within departments. Sometimes I need to look specifically at the UK field marketing budget. I need to look specifically at the performance marketing budget just to see, that we're aligned with what we plan to spend. And with reporting, I need to be able to filter that information and keep those filters. So we've recently introduced a filter function where I can save those views. Oh, absolute game changer, absolute game changer. And when I think about big enterprise organizations who are actually dealing with, let's say, 200-300 budgets, I'm not dealing with that many, but being able to filter that information and have those views instantaneously, yeah, like I said, absolute game changer. So I'm very, very grateful to the product team for building that. Yeah, super happy.
I shall pass that on to them. I think they'll be delighted to hear that. and yeah, I have to say that ability to save views that you use regularly has been really, really priceless. Okay, so final piece I want to ask you about it. A major feature for us we launched couple of weeks ago, is bank transfer access. So that's the ability for people like yourself to do everything we've done before, but traditionally that's been with a card, either a physical or a virtual card. We're now giving you the ability to make a bank transfer and to delegate that authority to you or people in your team, or perhaps even you might delegate it to me to pay something. Talk to me about the bank transfer access feature and how you think that's going to change what you do, if indeed you think that.
So for me, this really, really resonates with our whole kind of mantra of liberate, finance, accomplish more. Because delegated bank transfers, for me, again, it goes back to this trust thing, and us being finance, being a business partner, really. And what I mean by business partnering is taking away the daily kind of operational tasks to allow them to focus on more strategic activity. Absolutely key. Delegated bank transfers will 100% allow them to do that. If I think at the rate of what we're paying and how often we're paying out to suppliers, and that's not a bad thing, by the way. Marketing is we're a big spender. We've got a lot of responsibility. It's to drive opportunities for the organisation. So for me, for my team to be able to take that away from, and it's not about putting the problem on another department. It's about partnering and supporting finance to be able to let them, focus on other activities. So for me, this, again, I'll say it again, game changer. And I think about all of the organisations we work with, and I really hope they embrace this function, because for me, it really is taking us to that progressive finance sort of era.
Safe to say you're a fan, and I love the way you got our tagline into your answer to that question. Okay, Kath, that's been really useful. Really good to hear, the perspective of somebody who actually uses this day to day in a marketing function, running marketing ops, and you do it brilliantly. But I will say, you are training your team to be just as scary and just as in charge as you are. So you've got us all under control. Rory.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
So folks, we've covered a lot today, from budget control and real-time visibility to automation, agility, empowering teams, reporting. And what ties it all together is a simple shift. When finance teams, whether they sit within finance or, as Kath does, within the marketing side, when they move from reactive gatekeeping to proactive enablement, the whole business benefits. It's faster, it's smarter, and as you've heard, it builds trust across teams. So thank you so much for attending our webinar today. If you have questions, if you have thoughts, if you have suggestions, or if you just want to chat, send us a message, get in touch. We're on all the socials, as you would expect. But thank you for your attention today. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next time.